All right, it's time for part two of my horror movie collection. Let's get going, guys. The Last Witch Hunter. All right, this is more of an action movie, but the horror elements are heavy in it. And look, man, I know what you're thinking. Vin Diesel, Last Witch Hunter. Are you fucking serious? Very, very much took me by surprise how much I like this. Um, it's like an urban horror, um, urban fantasy horror movie, uh, and it's pretty good at that. Surprisingly good at that. Very fun. You'll notice that the plot to this, if you've seen Hellboy 2019, one of those two stole from each other because it's essentially the same plot. Next, Leatherface. This is the original series, part three, quote unquote. Really, it was kind of a reboot from New Line. Is this a good movie? No, it's not good. But there is qualities in it that I really enjoy. And I'm a Texas Chainsaw Massacre fanatic, so I had to get it. So there's that. Although I'm not a Texas Chainsaw Massacre fanatic enough to get part four, or not really part four, but the next generation, which sucks. But I will get this Leatherface, the prequel to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre chronology is all fucked up. Some of them don't link to each other. Some of them stand alone. Whatever. But this one's supposed to be a prequel to the original. You know what? I really, really, really liked this movie. It surprised me how much I liked this movie. It's very different, but I can't complain. I actually really fucking loved it. Um, I had to check if there was something in there. Okay. Next up, Let the Right One In. Quite possibly the best vampire film I've seen in the last, ever. Wow, what a movie. Based on a great book of the same name by Jean-Olivier Lindquist. Wow. There is an American remake called Let Me In, which is also good, starring Chloe Grace Moretz. But yeah, man, that's the way to go right there. Lights out. This was a fun little fucking flick. You know what? I do think it kind of peters out in steam a little bit, but that's maybe because they were stretching a good concept a little thin. But overall, a very fun movie. Next, Lords of Salem, another Rob Zombie flick. What do you know? Here, I think, though, a very faulty movie, and it has some horrendous dialogue. Man, the dialogue sucks in this. And there's one character, this professor character, that is just the worst actor doing the worst job with the worst dialogue of all time. Despite all that, the visuals in this movie made me want to buy it. That's it. The visuals are so creepy and weird and strong that I had to get it. But the movie, the dialogue especially, is fucking atrocious. There's some shit in there that'll make you laugh. It's so bad. Mama, admittedly have not seen this yet, but the director, the producer, and their work made me want to get it. So I will indulge in that. Mandy. This is a weird movie, isn't it? There's no way to explain this movie. It's going to have a video of its own. Next. Mother from Darren Aronofsky again. With Aronofsky, it's a weird affair. It's more of a psychological horror thing. This is a conundrum of a movie, but if you get what's going on, oh boy, is it good. Next, Werner Herzog's Nosferatu, both the German and English version, which are essentially the same. Klaus Kinski as the titular villain. This is a remake, and it's a fucking amazing remake. Next, The Nun. This is part of the Conjuring universe. At this point, I'm just collecting the Conjuring universe. I haven't seen this one yet. I don't know if I'm going to like it, to be honest with you. Hopefully I will. Next, Oculus. Oculus, man. This is a Mike Flanagan directed movie. He's kind of a big voice in horror now. Yeah. He's, you know what? I was gonna say he's gonna move on to big things, but he's already in the midst of big things. Odd Thomas is a horror light adaptation of the book of the same name from Dean Koontz. Very fun, man. Anton Yelchin is a very affable guy as Odd. Next up, we have Orphan, which is kind of like a pseudo Hitchcockian thriller with heavy horror inclinations. Really good movie. I think it deserves a lot more praise than it gets. The Orphanage, aka El Orfanato, is a movie produced by Guillermo del Toro, and you can tell why he wanted his name on this. J.A. Bayona made a movie that is very gothic in influence, and at the same time has that sympathetic inclination towards the horror characters that Del Toro is known for. Overlord, this was just a fucking blast. This is a ride of a movie. You sit down and you watch cool shit happen. That's what that movie is. The Paranormal Activity 1, 2, and 3 flicks. Yeah, I know it's, again, horror circles. Some people are like, fuck that movie and that series. Mainstream garbage is nonsense. I really like these movies, man. 1, 2, 3 are the strongest arc. I will point out that part 4 is possibly the second weakest. Part 6 is definitely the weakest. And I don't have part 6, but I need to get part 5, which I know a lot of people don't like, but it's one of my favorites. I really like part 5. Next, People Under the Stairs, Scream Factory version. Weird ass a social commentary movie with tongue planted firmly in cheek from Wes Craven. This is a strange movie and I love every second of it. A Perfect Getaway, again more of a thriller, but there's enough of it being wicked in some ways that makes it stick in my horror section. Cool movie, man. Doesn't get a lot of attention, but should definitely get some. Phantom of the Opera, the Robert Englund 1989 version. Best Phantom of the Opera. My favorite Phantom of the Opera adaptation. I love it. It's a mixture of the classic elements. Sticks pretty close to the story. Has 80s weird, gore in it. And, it has a kind of a Hammer feeling to it as well. Very lavish production. Love it. Next, Phoenix Forgotten. Found footage film. Very good. Oh, so good. Now, my dog chewed the shit out of my copy. That's why it's missing that chunk. That pissed me off because it also chewed my slipcover on it. But this is a movie that should have gotten more attention. Fucking great. Planet Terror from Robert Rodriguez, one of my boys. This is a romp, you know what I'm saying? Big, silly, over-the-top romp. Love it. Psycho from Alfred Hitchcock. Classic. There's no need to explain why this is in my collection. The Prophecy 1 and 2. I used to love these movies back in the day. Admittedly, they're flawed, but you know what? Christopher Walken alone is the reason to buy these. Part 3 is the one I'm missing, and I plan to get that soon. Love them. Quarantine is an American remake of a Spanish movie called Rec. If you're not inclined to read subtitles, then this is a decent alternative. It's a pretty decent remake, and it's made by the Dowdle brothers, who did As Above, So Below, and the Poughkeepsie Tapes. It's a decent remake. It gets a lot of flack because it's a remake, but you know what? They did a good job with it. Next, this is something I had to import, and I was very glad to pay for it. Raw is an amazing fucking movie. Part of the French horror movement. Oh my god, this is one hell of a movie, man. A coming-of-age story presented in this form, unlike anything I've seen before. Great. Repo the Genetic Opera from Darren Lynn Bousman, who did Saw 2 and 3, most notably, and 4. This is a musical that's very gory and strange. Love it. Next up, another French movie, Revenge. Great revenge thriller. Yeah, man, with heavy exploitation roots and actually a very strong social message in it. So that's cool. Visually, by the way, very rich. Just some great cinematography. The Ruins, an adaptation of a Scott Smith movie. A book, I'm sorry. The book was far better than the movie, but the movie is pretty fun. Pretty fun, you know. Flawed but fun. Speaking of flawed but fun, Saw. Really love the initial 3 stories or installments. I think that's the strongest arc. I think it should have ended at part 3. Part 4, all right, a little over convoluted, but it's fine. Part 5, stinky. Part 6, really good. Part 7, alright. Jigsaw, unnecessary. But they're all there. Silent House. This is a remake by the very same people, I believe, that made the original. I may be wrong about that, but I think so. The point is, the original was a Spanish language movie. This is a remake starring Elizabeth Olsen. It's interesting the way this movie is made. It gives you that illusion of an unbroken shot, and Elizabeth Olsen does a really good job of communicating this character. Sleepy Hollow from Tim Burton. Kind of a comedy or very light comic affair, but pretty cool version of the story. I really liked it. I really like it. Next, Stitches, a clown horror comedy. It's not a good movie, but it's a fun movie. Ultimately, it sucks to be honest with you, but it's fun. Next, Stir of Echoes, excellent adaptation of this Matheson story. That's it. It's really good, man. Don't know about that sequel though. Stinky. Stoker. This is one I bought on a lark because the director Park Chan Wook is somebody I admire. 2, it was written by Wentworth Miller, fucking from Prison Break. That's weird, and I just expect to like it. I may not, but I'm pretty sure I will. Suspiria, one of my favorite horror films of all time, a visual descent into weirdness. The great score. It's just one of those things that the atmosphere is what it's all about. Story and dialogue-wise, it's not very strong, but it is an international movie. It's an Italian movie, to be precise. But boy, is it a great movie. And I also got the remake, which wisely chooses not to mimic the visuals of the first one, and it leans more into the story of it. I haven't seen it yet, but I expect that I will like it. That's why I was willing to pay for it. Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, the 70s Amicus adaptations. Fucking love these things. I'm a big Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, and Haunt of Fear fan. EC Comics in general, really. So these were the first renditions, and boy howdy, are they just a blast. I love these movies. Vault of Horror, by the way, is the first time uncut ever here, so that's cool. Next, Tales from the Hood, another anthology. This one, of course, takes it urban and tongue planted firmly in cheek. Lots of social commentary. Very good and underappreciated, albeit a little hammy, but it's intended to be a little hammy. Next, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The classic, man. Possibly one of my favorite horror franchises of all time, even though it's very uneven and weird. But part 1 is an undisputed masterpiece of strangeness, a true experience into a descent into madness. Love it. Part 2, love it. I know it's a controversial one, but fuck, man. This is a crazy, weird, funny movie. Some strong-ass effects from Tom Savini and crew. Love it. The remake. It's a good remake. It's a damn good remake. I'm sorry, but it is. And you know what? The prequel, even better. Boy, is that a brutal movie. Next, John Carpenter's The Thing. This is an import version with the, not the remake, but the prequel. That some people foolishly call a remake. And the original John Carpenter's The Thing. I like both of them. I thought the prequel was pretty strong. I think the effects were fucked on it because they covered up the physical effects with CGI. But the movie still stands on its own. And it's a good compliment to the, yes, still very superior John Carpenter's The Thing. So that's something I had to get. And I also had to get the Scream Factory limited edition steelbook because it has a 4K scan, a 2K scan, commentary, a bunch of fucking features. Just, it's a must. Train to Busan, one of the best horror films to come out in the last, zombie films to come out in the last few years. If you haven't seen this, check it out. It's a very unique take. Two Evil Eyes, a two-story anthology, from Dario Argento and George A. Romero, adapting Poe stories, The Black Cat and The Case of Valdemar. I forgot the full name. Yeah, Mr. Valdemar, I'm sorry. Next, Victor Crowley, that's part 4 in the Hatchet series. Next, Underworld 1. 2, and 3. Again, that's kind of stretching the definition of horror, but there are vampires and werewolves fighting each other, so kinda. Those are the only 3 that I was interested in buying. I do like part 4, but it's pretty much just an action movie straight up. Not great. And part 5 sucks ass. Part 2 really sucks ass too, but whatever. I bought it. It was cheap. The Visit, M. Night Shyamalan's found footage movie that got a lot of praise despite it being a found footage movie. Honestly, it's not a great found footage movie. I think it would have been much better as a standard, straightforward movie. However, the concept is cool, and there's stuff in it that I really like. Next, The Void, a Lovecraftian visual feast. This is a great fucking weird movie, man. If you like Lovecraft, check this out. It'll maybe tickle your pickle. We Are Still Here. This is another one that I bought on a lark because it was like $1.34. It's supposed to be good. I guess we'll find out. Wishmaster Collection has part 1 through 4. I only like part 1 and 2, and you know they're cheesy, but that they're supposed to be cheesy. Part 3 and 4 can eat it, literally. The Witch, one of the best horror movies of the last 10 years, period, possibly ever. Fuck, this is a fucking movie. Next, Wolfman. This is Joe Johnston's version of the Wolfman, and yet another attempt to start the Dark Universe, and it's okay. I like the effects in this. I like Anthony Hopkins, who is the most obvious bad guy ever in it. Benicio, of course, is a cool actor and one of my favorite actors. You know, it's it's a flawed movie, but you know, Joe Johnston movies usually are. But you could see the good in it. Plus, Emily Blunt's in it, and she was Mary Poppins, and clearly I have a crush on Mary Poppins. Next, World War Z, which I think it doesn't get the appreciation it deserves. A lot of people were like, it's not the book. Of course it's not the book. It's a companion to the book, just like anything they've made based on the book. I think it's really good, actually. Deserves a lot more credit than it's gotten. Wrong Turn 1, 2, and 3. Haven't seen past part 3, so if I do and I like the rest, I'll get those, but I do love part 1, and I really had a fucking fun time with part 2. And part 3 was pretty decent. Yoga Hosers is a shitty ass movie from Kevin Smith. You know, it was given to me by my brother because he knew that I hated it, so it was kind of like, haha, now you own it. But I kind of have to own it because it is part of the eventual Kevin Smith trilogy of weird Canadian horror movies. And Tusk, which is part of it, is a movie that I really like and want to own. So I guess Yoga Hosers has to be there for now. Next up is Lucio Fulci's A Zombie. Limited 3-disc edition, contains the soundtrack. Gorgeous 4K restoration. Never seen this movie like this before. It's fucking amazing. One of the great, weird Italian zombie movies of all time. Lucio Fulci's second best film, probably. Most likely. Yes. And Zombieland. This kind of shitty steelbook version. I don't really like this design, but whatever. The movie's fucking fantastic. So, is that it? Is that my whole horror collection? Nope, there's more. Stay tuned for part 3, where we go into box sets, special editions, and all the other mess. In the meantime, hit